Abigail Ashford did not know that the tall man standing at the gates of her small village had already picked her out 3 days earlier. He wore a heavy cloak made of dark fur that looked like the color of midnight, and he stood there in complete quiet. She did not know his name. She did not know about the special sign hidden under his cloak, and she had no idea that when his eyes met hers, something very old and very strong locked into place inside his chest, like a key fitting perfectly into its only matching lock. All Abigail knew was that the man who came every year to collect the harvest tax had arrived early, and her younger sister Marin was trembling right beside her. "Abigail," Marin whispered. Her fingers held Abigail's wrists so tightly that they left little marks on the skin. "Abigail, that man is not the tax collector." Abigail knew it too, even if she did not want to say it out loud. Real tax collectors did not come with 12 strong riders wearing black leather armor. They did not stand so tall, more than 6.5 feet, with shoulders so wide they blocked the morning sunlight. And they never looked at a group of scared villagers the way a hawk watches the ground below, calm and sure. The old village leader Fenwick walked slowly forward with his walking stick. His voice shook a little, the way a man's voice does when he knows he is no longer the strongest person around. "My lord," Fenwick said, "we did not expect guests as important as you. If you will kindly tell us why you have come, we will do everything our small village can to help." The stranger stayed silent for a long time. Then he slowly pushed back the hood of his cloak. Behind Abigail, 3 women breathed in quickly with surprise. He was not handsome like the princes in the songs that traveling singers told. He looked strong and sharp, like a well-made sword, full of hard lines and serious purpose. His hair was black and reached past his jaw. It was pushed back from a face that seemed made from hard stone and deep sadness. A thin silver scar ran from his left temple down to his cheek, as if someone had once tried to hurt his eye but did not succeed. His eyes were a pale gray, the exact color of a winter sky right before a big storm. Those eyes looked carefully over all the people gathered there. When his gaze passed over Abigail, her stomach felt heavy and strange. "I am Brandon Ironheart," he said. His voice was deep and calm, the kind of voice that never had to shout, because people always listened. "I am the Alpha King of the Northern Territories." The whole village went so quiet that Abigail could hear a chicken scratching in the dirt behind the bakery. The words Alpha King moved through the crowd like a strong wind. People took steps backward. Mothers quickly pulled their children behind their skirts. Fenwick's walking stick almost fell, and he caught it just in time. The Alpha King of the Northern Territories had not come to the small outer villages for more than 10 years. People told stories about his father, who had been a great conqueror, and his grandfather, who had been a harsh ruler. The tales that reached their quiet valley mixed fear and wonder together. They spoke of a man who brought many fighting wolf clans together by his own strong will, who punished those who betrayed him, and who had never chosen a mate because he found no one worthy enough. And now he stood here, right in their village, in the mud near the horseshoemaker's shop, as if he had simply come to buy shoes for his horse. "I am here," Brandon Ironheart went on, "because 3 days ago some bandits attacked a group of my supply wagons on the eastern road. We followed the tracks, and they led to the forest next to your village." His eyes moved over the people once more. "I did not come to punish anyone. I came to find out what happened. My men will need places to sleep and your help. In return, I will give your village my protection and pay for any trouble we cause." Abigail let out a long breath she did not know she had been holding. This was not a raid. It was not taking people away to fight. It was only asking for rooms. She could manage that. She was the one who looked after the small inn at the edge of the village. Her mother had left it to her before a bad fever took her away 2 winters earlier. The inn was tiny. It leaked in 3 different places, and the stairs made loud creaking noises that could wake anyone. But it had beds, a warm fireplace, and a kitchen that still carried the sweet smell of her mother's fresh bread if Abigail closed her eyes and remembered hard enough. Fenwick was already nodding fast, bowing low and waving his hands with nervous kindness. "Of course, my lord. Of course, we have the inn. We have extra rooms. We have whatever you need." The Alpha King's eyes stopped moving. They landed straight on Abigail. She felt the look like a heavy but warm blanket that would not move. It touched her skin, her neck, and her throat. His pale gray eyes held hers, and something passed between them that she could not name. It felt like a gentle pull low in her chest, as if an invisible string she never knew about had been tightened. She stood up a little straighter without thinking. He looked at her for 2 full heartbeats, then turned his eyes away. When his gaze left her, it felt like walking out of warm sunshine into cool shade. "The inn," he told Fenwick. His voice sounded almost the same, but just a tiny bit softer around the edges. "I will stay at the inn." The first night was very busy. Abigail carried extra blankets up from the storage room under the house. She scrubbed the big main room until her knuckles turned red and sore. She cooked a huge pot of thick stew, enough to feed many people, which was exactly what she was doing. Brandon's soldiers surprised her by being very polite. They cleaned their boots before coming inside. They put their weapons in a neat pile by the door. They thanked her for the food with careful, respectful words, like men who had been told clearly to behave well. Brandon himself took the room at the far end of the upstairs hallway, the one with a window that looked out over the forest. He ate his meals by himself. He did not talk much. But every single time Abigail walked into a room where he was, she felt that same gentle pull in her chest. She would look up and find his calm gray eyes already watching her. She told herself it meant nothing. He was a king after all. He was probably just watching everything carefully, the way any wise leader would. She was only the innkeeper, as ordinary as the tables or the fireplace. But ordinary things did not make a king look the way he looked at her, with a quiet fire burning behind his calm face, something that felt very much like he already knew her. On the second night, Marin came to the inn wearing her nicest dress. Her golden hair was brushed until it shone like soft honey in the light. Everyone in the village agreed that Marin was the pretty one in the family. Abigail had sharp lines, rough hands from hard work, and a face that always looked ready for the next difficulty. Marin had gentle curves, big blue eyes, and a smile that could make people forget where they were going. "I brought fresh bread," Marin said happily, holding up a basket. It was clearly just an excuse to visit. Her eyes searched the room for the Alpha King, like someone on an important mission. "He eats his meals upstairs," Abigail said in a plain voice, still scrubbing a pot, alone. "Abigail," Marin whispered, leaning close, "do you understand what is happening? An Alpha King who has no mate is staying in our village. This almost never happens. It is a special chance that comes only once in a lifetime, for someone." "For someone," Abigail repeated quietly. "You mean for you." Marin's cheeks turned pink, but she did not argue. "I am only saying that a connection to the king could help our whole family. It could help the entire village." Abigail's hands stopped moving in the soapy water. She thought about the leaking roof, the money they still owed in taxes, and how tired she felt deep in her bones. The healer had looked at her last week and called it bone-deep exhaustion, as if it were a sickness instead of just her normal life. "Then take the bread to him," Abigail said softly. Marin went upstairs. She came back 20 minutes later looking puzzled and a little upset. "He said thank you and closed the door," she reported. Abigail did not smile, but a small, warm feeling flickered inside her chest for a moment, before she pushed it away. On the third morning, things felt different. Abigail was down in the cool, dark cellar lifting a heavy sack of grain when she heard the stairs creak. The Alpha King came down as if he had been searching for her. She stood up so quickly she almost hit her head on a low wooden beam. "My lord," she said, brushing white flour off her apron. "Do you need anything? I can ask one of the boys to bring it." "You run this inn all by yourself?" he asked. It did not sound like a real question. "I have a little help," she answered carefully. "Tam comes in the mornings, and old Bess washes the sheets when her back feels strong enough. But mostly, yes, I do it alone." He looked at her the same careful way he had looked at the crowd on the first day, slow, complete, and thoughtful. This time there was no crowd. It was only her, standing in a cellar that smelled of potatoes and dry earth, with flour on her cheek and her braids starting to come loose. "You have not slept much," he said. She blinked in surprise. "I am sorry?" "Since we arrived, You have been working late every night to take care of us. You have slept only 2 or 3 hours each night." The fact that he had noticed made something jump inside her. She did not understand why. "There is a lot of work to do," she said. "Yes, there is." He stepped closer, and the small cellar suddenly felt even smaller. "That is why I am sending 2 of my men to help you while we stay here. They will carry the heavy things, chop the wood, and bring the water. It is not something we can discuss," he added before she could speak. Abigail opened her mouth, then closed it again. "That is not needed," she started. "It is not a request," he said simply. A spark of her usual stubbornness rose up, the same strong fire that had helped her survive 2 hard winters alone, bill collectors, broken bones, and sadness so heavy it sometimes made breathing difficult. I know you do not need it," he said. His voice became lower and a little rough, and the small hairs on her arms stood up. "That is not the reason I am doing it." He looked straight into her eyes for a long moment filled with feeling. The pull in her chest grew so strong that she swayed a little. His eyes followed the movement, and his jaw became tight, as if he had felt the same pull. Then he turned and walked back up the stairs. Abigail stayed in the cellar with her heart beating hard against her ribs, and a strange, frightening feeling that something important had just claimed her, even though she did not fully understand it yet. The days that followed were filled with the search for the bandits. Brandon's men rode through the forest, asked questions to travelers, and drew maps of the roads. Brandon himself was away most of the day. He returned when the sun went down, with mud on his boots and tight lines of worry on his shoulders that Abigail could feel even from the other side of the room, like warmth from a hot fire. She began to notice small things about him, the way he rolled his neck when he felt frustrated, the way his fingers tapped the table when he was thinking deeply, the way his face became completely still like stone when he received bad news, except for the tiny flare of his nose and the slow curl of his hand into a fist. She learned that he liked his tea with no honey. He read his papers by the light of a lamp until very late at night. He checked every door and window lock himself before going to bed, and when he walked past her room, his steps became slower. She also learned that he was not the frightening monster the old stories made him seem, and quietly, without her realizing how much, he was learning about her too. One afternoon, Fenwick came to the inn with an idea from the village council. They had talked together and decided that because the Alpha King was here, they should offer him a marriage. They chose Marin's name, beautiful, gentle Marin who would be good for politics. Abigail stood behind the bar holding a cloth and listened as Fenwick explained the plan to Brandon in the main room. Marin stood beside the old man in a soft blue dress, her cheeks pink and her eyes looking down, the perfect picture of a modest young woman. Brandon sat at a corner table with his long legs stretched out. His face showed nothing. He listened to the entire speech without saying a word. When Fenwick finished, the room became very quiet. "No," Brandon said. Fenwick made a surprised sound. "My lord, if I may explain, Marin is known as the loveliest young woman here. She is gentle, very pretty, and her family—" I said no. The words were final, like stone breaking. Fenwick stepped back. Marin's cheeks grew redder, but she lifted her head bravely and showed no other sign of pain. Abigail should have felt only relief or sadness for her sister. This had nothing to do with her. Instead, the string in her chest hummed softly, and when she looked up, Brandon was watching her again. In his pale gray eyes, she saw patience, like a man waiting calmly at the edge of an answer. That same night, Marin found Abigail sitting on the back porch of the inn. Abigail was shelling peas in the moonlight because her hands needed something to keep busy, or she felt she might burst with all the feelings inside. "He said no," Marin said as she sat down beside her. "I heard," Abigail replied. "Abigail, I do not think he's looking for the kind of thing Fenwick offered." "Then what does he want?" Marin gave her a look full of understanding. "You cannot really be so unaware." The pea pod in Abigail's fingers broke with a snap. "Stop. He watches you. He gave his own soldiers to help you. He checks the doors near your room at night." "Abigail." "Stop," Abigail said more sharply than she meant. The word carried the raw feeling she had kept hidden. "Men like him do not choose women like me. That is not how the world works." Marin stayed quiet for a moment. Maybe the world is wrong sometimes, she said gently. Abigail said nothing. The moonlight shone on the trees, and far in the forest something howled. A long, low sound full of searching. 2 days later, the bandits attacked the village itself. They came at sunrise, more than 20 of them, carrying short swords in the wild anger of men who knew the Alpha King's presence would end their stealing. Abigail woke to loud screams and the sharp smell of smoke. She jumped out of bed, pulled on her boots with no socks, and ran downstairs. The main room was already empty. Brandon's men moved with quick, trained skill. Through the window she saw shadows running between the houses, and the orange light of fire on metal. In the middle of the road, standing completely still while everything around him was chaos, was Brandon. He had changed partway into his wolf form, something she had never seen before. His hands had claws, his eyes glowed with a light that was not fully human, and the power around him made the air itself seem to bend. 2 bandits lay unconscious at his feet. His soldiers were rounding up the others with strong control, but 1 bandit had slipped through. Abigail saw him at the last moment, a thin, wild-eyed man coming around the side of the inn holding a knife. He was heading for the open cellar door where Abigail had stored grain the night before. He was not attacking Brandon. He was going for the inn itself. Abigail did not stop to think. She grabbed the heavy iron poker from beside the fireplace and ran out the back door. The man was quicker than she expected. His blade cut the edge of her arm, a shallow line that burned hot. She gasped, but kept going. She swung the poker and hit his wrist hard. He dropped the knife with a cry. She kicked it away, pushed him against the wall with all the strength her fear gave her, and held the poker firmly across his throat. "Move," she growled, "and I will give you a reason to stay still." The man stared at her with wide, shocked eyes. He had expected an empty building. Instead, he found a woman with iron in her hands and strong anger on her face. Brandon appeared around the corner a second later, his face full of fury and his chest rising fast. His glowing eyes took in the sight, Abigail holding an armed bandit against the wall with a fireplace tool, while blood ran down her arm. Something raw and open crossed his face, so clear that for one moment Abigail forgot the bandit completely. "Abigail?" He said only her name, but it carried so much feeling. "I am fine," she said. Her voice shook a little, which annoyed her. "I had it under control." He crossed the space between them in 3 long steps. One hand pulled the bandit away like the man weighed nothing, and tossed him to a waiting soldier. The other hand took Abigail's hurt arm with such gentle care that it made her eyes sting. The softness was so different from the fighting he had just done. "You are hurt," he said. He looked at the cut carefully. His claws were gone now, and his touch was as light as a feather. His jaw was tight. "It is only a small cut. You are shaking. It is just the excitement. I am fine." He lifted his eyes from her arm. Their faces were very close. The string in her chest did not pull this time. It sang, a warm, deep sound that moved through her bones. She saw his eyes widen and his breath catch, and she knew without any doubt that he felt it too. "You could have been killed," he said very softly. "So could you." A tiny smile almost appeared on his lips. "Not very likely." "Proud," she said, "but true." His hand stayed on her arm. His thumb moved in a slow, comforting circle on her uninjured skin. His eyes were saying many things his mouth had not yet spoken. After the fight, time felt strange. The fires were put out quickly. The bandits were tied up safely. Only 2 villagers had small injuries. Brandon's men took care of everything with calm skill. That evening, Brandon came to find Abigail. She was sitting on the back porch again, her arm wrapped in clean cloth, her hair hanging loose because raising her arms to braid it hurt the stitches. The moon was a thin silver curve. The air smelled of rain and the last bits of smoke. He sat down beside her without asking. They stayed quiet for a long time. "I need to tell you something," he said at last. His voice had no kingly command in it now, just honest, rough truth. "And I need you to listen before you decide anything." Her heart beat fast. "All right." "The bond," he said. "The pull you have been feeling. The string in your chest." She became very still. "How did you?" "Because I feel it too. I have felt it since the first moment I saw you standing in the crowd. covered in dust from the road, with your chin set like you would fight a king if you had to. His voice cracked just a little on the last words, and that small break opened something inside her. You are my mate, Abigail. The bond knew you. I knew you. The world seemed to tilt. She held the edge of the porch tightly with her good hand and looked at him. The moonlight made his scars shine like silver and turned his eyes bright. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. She wanted to hide her face against his neck and breathe him in until she forgot what being lonely felt like. That is why you came here. Not only because of the bandits. The bandits were real, he said. But I felt the bond calling me 3 days before I arrived. I followed it. It brought me here, to you. She swallowed. Fenwick offered you Marin. I know. She is beautiful. She is kind. She is everything a king is supposed to want. Brandon turned to face her completely. The strong feeling in his eyes took her breath away. I do not want beautiful and kind in that way. I want the woman who runs this inn by herself, who refuses to rest, and who fights armed men with a fireplace poker. I want the woman who works until her hands hurt and never asks for help. I want you. Not because of how you look or how you act in front of important men, but because of who you are when no one is watching. Her eyes felt hot with tears she had never let fall before, the ones she had held back during her mother's death, the money troubles, and the long, heavy loneliness. You do not really know me, she said. I know you have not let anyone care for you in many years. I know you gave your sister the better room and kept the one with the cold window for yourself. I know you secretly add extra honey to old Bess's tea because her joints hurt when it is cold. I know you check on the village children every morning before you open the inn. He paused, and his voice became almost a whisper. I know no one has touched you with real kindness for so long that when I held your arm today, you almost cried. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. He caught her hand. His palm was warm, rough, and steady. When his fingers closed around hers, the string in her chest changed from a hum to a bright, golden warmth that filled every empty place she had carried inside. I am not asking you to leave and become a queen in my palace, he said. I am asking you to let me stay. Here, if that is what you want. Wherever you are, that is where I want to be. You are a king, she said, her voice breaking. You cannot simply live in a small, old inn in a village no one knows about. Watch me, he answered. She laughed then, a wet, shaky sound that was half crying. His hand held hers more tightly. When she looked at him through her tears, he was watching her the way no one ever had in her whole life. Like she was the answer to every question. Like she was the most important thing. Like everything he had ever built or fought for had led him to this quiet back porch in the moonlight, with a woman who had flour in her hair and stitches in her arm. She kissed him. She did not plan to do it. She simply leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The whole world became quiet, golden, and peaceful. His hand left hers so he could gently hold her face. Both palms cradled her jaw as if she were something precious and delicate. He kissed her back with such soft care that it melted every hard part inside her. His lips were warm and sure. He tasted like the plain tea she had made for him earlier. When she made a small sound, he pulled her closer with gentle control, and she felt the slight tremble in his hands. When they finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. His breathing was uneven. His thumbs softly stroked her cheeks. The bond between them felt alive and shining, beating in time with both their hearts. Stay, she whispered. Always, he answered. 3 months later, the inn had a strong new roof. It also had new windows, a much safer cellar, and a bigger kitchen, twice as large as before. When an Alpha King decided to make a village his second home, changes happened fast and with plenty of help. Abigail still ran the inn herself. She had refused to let anyone take it over, which led to a 3-day friendly argument with Brandon. It ended with him raising his hands and saying, "Fine, but I am hiring a full team of helpers, and you will sleep 8 hours every night. That is not open for discussion." She answered, 6 hours. He said, 7. She smiled and said, "Deal." They sealed the agreement with a kiss that made 2 of his soldiers look away awkwardly. Marin had found her own happiness with a kind young healer from the next valley. He looked at her with the gentle love she deserved. She visited the inn every week and playfully teased Abigail about how Brandon followed her around the kitchen like a very big, very strong shadow. "He is doing it again," Marin said one morning, nodding toward the doorway. Brandon leaned against the frame, watching Abigail knead bread with such open love on his face that it seemed funny for a man who could lead armies. "He is always doing it," Abigail said, but she was smiling, and the smile reached deep places inside her that had stayed dark for a long time. Brandon walked across the kitchen, put his arms around her waist from behind, and kissed the soft spot below her ear that always made her knees feel weak. "You have flour on your face," he murmured. "I always have flour on my face," she said. "I know," he said with a smile. He turned her around, lifting her chin gently, and kissed her softly and completely, with the same caring tenderness he had shown on that first night on the porch. The bond hummed warmly between them, golden, steady, and forever. Abigail leaned into it the same way she leaned into him, with her whole heart, without holding back, without the heavy armor she had worn for so many years. For a long time, she had believed she was only the practical sister, the strong one, the one who never got happy endings. She had told herself that just surviving, keeping the inn open, paying the bills, and keeping people at a distance was enough for a life. She had been wrong. The life she had secretly dreamed about was right here in her kitchen, with bread dough on his hands and a whole kingdom behind him. He looked at her, like she was the answer to every question he had ever asked. "I love you," she said. The words came easily now, like breathing, like something she had always known but had been afraid to say. Brandon's arms held her closer. His winter-gray eyes became soft, in the special way that only she ever saw. He kept that tenderness just for her, like a gift he had saved his whole life. "I love you," he said. "I loved you when you were shelling peas under the moonlight. I loved you when you fought a man twice your size with a fireplace poker. I loved you when you said you were fine, even though your hands were shaking." He rested his forehead against hers. "I will love you when this inn grows old and we fix it again. I will love you when our children run through the kitchen with muddy feet. I will love you when we are old and gray and you still refuse to let anyone else wash the dishes." She laughed, bright, real, and full of joy. The sound filled the kitchen and floated out through the new windows into the fresh morning air. Somewhere in the village, someone heard it and smiled, because when Abigail Ashford laughed, it meant the world felt a little brighter and a little more right than it had before. Outside, the sun rose higher over the trees and turned the whole valley into shining gold. Thank you so much for watching this story. Please like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and kindly subscribe to the channel. We post new videos like this every day. Thank you, and see you on the next video.